Well, everyone, welcome to Relationship Matters, Empowering Conversations. I'm really excited about today. I've got a new friend, and I'm really excited to introduce to you Jenn Dean. And Jenn is part of Families Matter Most
Yes.
coaching, but also speaker, radio DJ, extraordinaire. And what she's done is she's taken her journey in life and she's brought it into helping others through their journey. And I just love that. Jenn, welcome to Relationship Matters.
Oh, thank you so much. I know our names are similar. Hey, relationship
Yeah,
matters, families matter most. We've got a
I
lot in
know.
common, Mark.
We do. And of course, we give kudos to Gary Chupik of Elite Mindset, who brought us together because he said, "You are the girl version of me, and I'm the boy version of you. And we think
Yeah.
alike, and we have a very similar outlook on things. And boy, is that true.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Is that ever true?" So we're really excited where Jenn really shines, and one of the things that she's found herself, I guess, by almost by accident, doing is helping families who have strong-willed children.
Oh,
And boy, I'm sure you can identify with that if you're one of those. In fact, I'll
oh,
just suggest right now, start thinking about who you're going to share this with, who you're going to share this
right.
podcast with, because she's going to have some really practical tools for you to help you deal with your strong-willed child. And I
Mhm.
and I just I heard one time, you don't ever want to break their will, you want to bend it. But I'm not sure if that's even a great saying, but um, I'm just really excited to have you on, Jenn, and I think this conversation's so important. I don't
Mhm.
know what it is. If maybe I'm um, too old, or if I'm just not remembering correctly, but I really believe that there has been an increase in tensions, in behavior patterns, behavior problems
Mhm.
within children in our society in the last decade. Even it just seems
Oh,
like things are out of
100%.
control.
That has been proven. It's anxiety and stress are at an all-time high. We have not seen this before. And so we're seeing it in schools, we're seeing it at home when we don't like to talk about the pandemic anymore. I know. But let me just tell you that when kids went home and parents were it was hard. It was a hard time. Parents are trying to work from home, mind you, help their kids with school. Everyone's under the same roof now. There's some fear, there's some anxiety, and I got so many phone calls. I had so many parents reaching out saying, Jenn, I had no idea my kids were this much trouble. They don't listen. They don't listen at all. Help me. So definitely there are some things that we can do, but I do want to recognize that yeah, this is hard. It is hard. And
Yeah,
if you're listening and you've got kids that you feel are challenging sometimes, I would want to encourage you saying you're not alone. There is a real
yeah.
struggle that's going on in families today.
There is, and the struggle is real, and it's not.
Yep.
It doesn't, put a value on your identity because you're struggling in this way with your kids.
Right.
I think that it's so important. I call COVID the great revealer. I think it revealed
Yes.
everything that was already under the surface. But we could
Mm.
get away with it because we had busyness going on and whatnot, and so that's really important. So maybe tell us a little bit about your work and
Yeah.
your practice of with Families Matter Most. What are some of the things that you're up to?
Well, my husband Sean and I, we have 3 kids, and the oldest is now 25 and the youngest is 17. So we're like, on the home stretch here. We're getting kids launched and it is sweet, and having teenagers is awesome. I love having teens. If you've had people that have scared you about raising teenagers, no, teenagers are fun. Their
Yeah,
jokes are funny.
yeah,
You're not laughing. I mean, 5-year-olds are cute too, but the
yeah,
jokes get better and better and you can legitimately hang out and relax and enjoy your
right,
teenagers. But a decade ago, 15 years ago, I was crying every day. I have
right,
raised a definite strong-willed child of our 3 kids. One of them in particular showed some real opposition. So he would present with oppositional defiance disorder presentation. some ADHD in there, some focus, and really challenging. So when he was under stress, he also had sensory processing disorder
Right. Yeah,
like
I've heard about that
challenges.
more and more.
Yes, and for him, when he would become overstimulated, he would move to anger.
Right.
So there was a lot of rage. There was a lot of
Right.
conflict in our home, and it was just days of battles and me trying to stay calm and me trying to reach his heart. And I can tell you in those
Mm,
days, I would strap my kids into the minivan, make sure they were safe, and I would sit on my step and cry every day.
uh,
Like I
yeah.
felt I felt like I was failing at this. I felt like I wasn't reaching their heart. I wasn't even making a dent. Like we were getting
Right.
farther apart, not closer together. I
Right.
felt
Right.
like a stranger off the street could do a better
Mm,
job raising my kids than I could. I
wow.
felt absolutely alone and isolated. And
Yeah.
so I'm coming from a place of, okay, I've done everything wrong. I've learned what doesn't work. I've learned what does work. And it was
Right.
little by little implementing something new. Because, Mark, I'm sure you can agree, we could bully our kids into doing things. I can
Right.
make them, well, I can try to make them do their homework or take the garbage out. But I
Right.
want more than that for our kids. I want
Yeah.
kids that want to do the right thing. I want
Right.
kids that we can have a relationship with and have peace and cooperation in the home. So I kind of went from this bottom of the pit of despair to on this journey of trying to figure out, okay, how can we do this? How can we
Right.
raise really good kids? But still, they have their own personalities. They're going to,
Yeah.
right? They're going to be their own world changers in life, but yet we can get along. We can cooperate at home.
Yeah. You bring up a good point that I want to just touch on for a little bit and then we'll jump back to that. But you brought up a few names of disorders, and
Yeah.
there seems to be a whole lot new library of diagnoses for kids nowadays. And it sure seems like autism spectrum, ADHD, all of this, connection disorders, all that kind of stuff are getting more and more prevalent. And what I'm hearing you say is, in spite of those things,
Mhm.
even though one of your children had some of those struggles, you were able to get them to a place where they could be their own person to be able
Oh,
to function.
100%. Lots of my clients recognize that their kids might have symptoms from one of these potential diagnoses. And
Yeah.
many of them decide to go down the route of medication, doctors,
Right.
and that's fine. That's fine. But we also still need to know how to deal with those behaviors at
Right.
home, right? We still need to
Yeah.
help our kids work on focus. We still need to help our kids deal with anger.
Yeah.
So, medication alone isn't the answer. I also have a number of clients who choose not to go down that route of
Right.
medication and doctors. And also, then too, we still need to work on the behaviors. So, I come alongside either way, whether we're
Yeah.
implementing some medical interventions and helping parents to figure
Right.
out, okay, how can you stay calm? How can you
Yeah.
hold yourself together? What can we do to help our kids in the moment?
Yeah.
Either
I
way,
think
it's
that's
been
so
beneficial.
I think that's so vital, Jen, because I think that one of two things happens. People make excuses, and
Mhm.
and they just, well, that's just them. They got a problem. They got this
Oh, no.
diagnosis,
No,
or they
that
go the
never
other way
goes
where
away.
they just want to medicate them and dope them up so that they don't have to deal with them. And I love your approach because it's a holistic approach. I think we have to have
Yeah.
a holistic approach to things. We can't
Yeah.
just pick one, cherry pick. Like I've heard some people now say that food makes a huge difference
Yeah.
for kids on the autism spectrum and on ADHD kids. Like that, if you get the right diet, they can actually manage that quite a bit without medication.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what
sometimes,
I
yeah.
love what you're saying is there's hope. So if you're listening today and that you're feeling like you're helpless, or that either
Mhm.
side of that coin I mentioned, no, Jen actually can help you get through to those kids and let them live
Yes.
out their purpose and their
Yes.
life, right?
Because regardless, if your child has difficulty focusing for whatever reason,
Yeah,
that's not necessarily going to go away. And we want to prepare them for life. We want them to be
right.
successful. So part of it is figuring out how to help them help themselves. Part
Yeah.
of it is what can we do in the moment to stay calm? But this is going to serve them because these challenges are likely not going to go away. I probably would have been nowadays diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah. Me too.
Probably. I see now there is quite a number of adults that are now going back and recognizing, hey, wait a minute, this was my challenge as a kid, but yet I have found ways to implement some strategies into my life to help me. Do I have
Right.
still strengths and weaknesses? 100%. But I have found ways to be super successful. And dare I say, use the things that some might consider a weakness, they have become a strength of mine.
Right.
There are some advantages to your child, no matter how difficult, no matter how much of a struggle it might
Yeah.
be raising them right now. And part of our job as parents is to call out the gold in them and to
Yeah.
these are your strengths. Let's deal with some of the weaknesses. Let's accept them and figure out maybe we can improve them. But here's your
Love it.
strengths and let's
Yeah.
run with those.
I love that. I do a workshop called strength-based parenting, and that's
Yes.
see what's strong, not what's wrong. See what's
Yes.
strong in them, right? And focus on that, because if you focus on
Mhm.
the negative, you're going to get more negative. If you focus on,
Yep.
what they can't do, they're going to continue not doing it. But if you focus on what they can do and let them, I always say, like, find what you're saying is to help your kids find their rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. One thing, a strategy that worked really well is I noticed working with families and even in my own home, I noticed that there was a tendency for kids. Let's say you have a child that they just get into more trouble at home. Like they're the ones that are going to challenge. This is the child that's going to be grounded or, get the privileges removed. The thing is, they know that. They know that they're the
Right.
one that's grounded most often. They're the
Yeah.
the trouble kid. And it broke my heart one day when I was working
Mm.
with a family and the child said, I know I'm the problem. I know something's wrong with
Oh,
me. Oh,
oh,
oh, and I thought,
oh,
I
that
don't
breaks my
want
heart.
that. And it's
No,
like none of us mean to do that,
of
but these
course.
child can perceive it that way. Of course, it's always me, I know. And so something that I recommend is talking to your kids about grit, particularly strong-willed,
Mm.
challenging, determined children. Talk to them about grit. I remember talking to my kid, my strong-willed child, about grit and saying, you have a lot of grit. And grit is actually a really good thing. They've said that it
Yes.
is the number one predictor of overcoming and doing hard things in
Yeah.
life. The kids with
Right.
grit are the ones that are going to see it through even when it's hard. And how do you know that? It's because they're pushing back on you even when
Right.
it's hard, right? But I
Right.
talked to my kid about grit. And then one day he was in trouble and he was sitting on a step and he was having to sit there for a little bit and I could hear him mumbling, oh, this grit got me again. I have too much grit. Ah, and I thought, I love
Yes.
that because he wasn't saying something's wrong with me. I'm a
That's right.
failure. What did I do now? Now it becomes a problem to solve. And strong-willed kids, they absolutely thrive on solving problems.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that, because then his identity is rooted in a positive rather than rooted in
Yes.
a negative, right? And
Yep.
so I love that, Jen. That's just amazing. So let's dive in a little bit into some of the practical pieces. I mean, you got to write a book, by the way. Like, you know,
It's coming.
you're
It's
you're
coming. Hold
coaching.
me accountable to that. It's coming.
I'm going to, because I think that this is so needed today. I think it's so encouraging for parents. Parents, if you're listening to this, please, watching this, take
Yes.
this to heart. Listen, you are not alone. You do have help out there. A and B, my definition of success is doing the best you can with what you have. So
Yep.
if you're doing that, you're being successful. But there are tools that you can get. So give us some practical
Mm.
tools that, maybe, I know you have three specific ones
Yeah.
that will really help. So let's lay it on the
Right.
people.
All
Yeah.
right. So parents with strong-willed kids, or not even parenting, teaching. If you're a coach, if you are
Right.
working with little people, little tiny humans, and you've got some challengers, you got some ones that are pushing back on you. One thing, probably the number one thing is it's not personal. We forget
Right.
that. We forget that. I forget
Yeah.
that. It's not personal. I promise you, these kids are not waking up in the morning and saying, how can I ruin their life today? What can I do to slow them down, to ruin their schedule, to get them completely off of their to-do list, to make them lose their minds and yell at us? They are not doing that. I
Right.
promise you that's not true. They're just
Right.
waking up and living their life and doing their thing. These kids tend to be super justice motivated. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more in
Uh,
my next point. It is not really about us. And
right.
that's hard to sit with because I know it feels
It
like it is.
is. Yeah, it does. And sometimes we think it reflects on us as a parent. So
Yeah,
we're embarrassed.
100.
And the last
Yes.
thing you ever want to be is embarrassed by your children, because when you are, you're sending a message to them that is not good. So don't be
Yeah.
embarrassed by your children. Be proud of your children. Be proud of their unique ways, and
Yeah.
tell them that. But then I always say separate personhood from behavior. So, say, listen, that you're not an angry person, so why are you being angry? Or you're
Yes.
not a liar, why are you lying? And I had
Yeah.
that experience with my son. Went through a lying phase, and I just said to him, you're not a liar, you're actually a very caring person, why are you lying? And it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
because they were scared to get in trouble about something. And so you got to create that environment of dialogue so that they can see the best in themselves. That's
Mm.
so good. It's not about you, parents.
It's not about us. Whenever we overreact, and this is something you could write down and post on your fridge. Whenever we
Yeah.
overreact, we've made it mean something personal about us. Anytime,
Right.
anytime you look back and you're like, oh, like I was more angry than I think I should have been, or there was some emotion there. It's because we've made it mean something about
Right.
us. And an example of that, my kids one time were sitting in front of the TV and I was trying to get their attention. And so I was walking over and kind of just calling out an instruction. And I was saying, go get this thing over here right now. And they just ignored me. They didn't even hear me. They didn't even look up. And I walked over
Yeah.
again. Hey, get the backpack. Didn't even hear me. And then I walked over there and said, you can't talk to me like that. You can't treat me like I'm garbage. Whoa, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happened there? I made it
Right.
mean something about me. I
Right.
made it mean they don't care about
Right.
me. I made it mean, and I think every parent can relate. I do all these things for you. I cook and I clean and I drive you everywhere and I buy you stuff and I take you to this and I try and plan fun things. The least you could do is listen to
Right.
me, right? I made it mean something about myself.
Right.
And I had
Right.
to stop and say, whoa, wait a minute. And here's a tool you can use to help you
Yeah.
kind of break out of that is you can stop and ask yourself, wait, is this typical kid behavior? Is it
Right.
typical kid behavior for two kids in front of a TV to not even, they looked at me like I was an alien, like they had not
Yeah.
even heard anything I
Yeah.
said before. It
It's like,
wasn't
mom,
even that
chill.
they
What's
were
going on?
purposely, right?
Yeah.
They were just absorbed in their TV show. Is this typical kid behavior? Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So I don't need to have extra emotion here. I just need to solve the problem. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
So
Doesn't mean
so
anything
that's what
about
you
me.
could ask is like, what problem can I help
Yep.
them solve?
Yep.
Right? What problem can I help them solve?
Yep. Nothing to do with me at all. Typical kid
Right.
behavior. To solve the problem, I need to pause the show and get their full attention.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
Right.
it. Done. But how many things, if you look back on the past 24 hours, if you've got little people at home, how many times have you overreacted and brought emotion in because you've made it
Right.
mean something when really it's typical kid behavior and it's a problem to
Right.
solve?
Yeah. So good. So good. What's number
So that's
2?
the first thing.
Yeah.
The
That's
second
that's
one,
amazing.
the second one is this one's hard. This one's hard for a lot of parents. Strong-willed kids don't learn from your words.
Oh boy. Oh
I
boy.
know. I know.
We're
Words
gonna
are
bust some
important, and I'm
bubbles
not saying
today.
we shouldn't use them. They don't
We're gonna bust
learn
some
that
bubbles.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were the kind of kid, let me ask, if were you the kind of kid that if you were told don't touch the stove, would you have touched the stove, Mark?
Absolutely.
Ah,
Because I was the problem child.
so you get
That's
it,
I get it.
and And was it because you thought your parents were stupid or you didn't
No,
respect them? No,
because I
it
was
was nothing
curious.
to do with them.
I was curious.
What will happen if I touch the stove? Why can't I touch the stove? How close to the stove can I
Can I
get?
get? Yeah, totally.
It's nothing to
What's
do
the
with the
big
parent,
deal?
right? But so much of the time we try to give our kids an instruction because we want to protect them. We want to save them
Mm,
from pain and struggle, of course. And they
yeah,
choose to learn things the hard way. Now, Mark and I was a strong-willed kid. We have to learn things through
yeah,
cause and effect. We learn the best. The
right.
good news is Mark touched the stove probably one time
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
learned that those are hot and I'm never going to do
yeah,
that again. No, I'm
yeah.
not. Please don't hear me. I'm not suggesting we encourage our kids to touch hot metal. Please. No.
No,
But
of course.
when it's appropriate, when it's
Yes.
safe, to just know that about our kids. Some kids, strong-willed kids, learn through cause and effect. So
Yeah.
our reminders, our threat, our beg, our pleading with them
Manipulation.
to manipulate, they will absolutely see it as manipulation. To them,
Right.
that is manipulation. I grew up in a home where there was lots of emotional manipulation. There was guilt tripping. Oh,
Yeah.
I remember one time I wanted pudding, and pudding was only for school lunches. And there was a 4-pack. Do you remember the 4-pack of puddings?
Yeah.
And I
Totally.
wanted it, and I'd say, okay, I went to my mom and I said, can I have a pudding? She said, no, it's for school. I go back, please, please. I'm badgering, please, please. Can I have a pudding? Just one pudding. I won't have it for school. I'm just so hungry. All of this, right? And I pushed my mom to the line, and I knew she was there, and she was mad, and she's like, don't ask me again. And I remember going back and looking at the pudding and thinking, I know she's at the line of action. Your kids know where the action line is.
Right.
And they will, particularly strong-willed kids, they will push you to
Right.
that line. And I knew
And,
it. And I thought, if I ask
mm,
again, it's either going to go really badly and I'm going to be in trouble, or I'm going to get
yeah.
the pudding.
Right.
I asked again.
Yeah.
And
But here's,
she said, fine. Sorry, Mark, let me finish my story. She said,
yeah.
fine, fine, eat all the pudding. And you know what? I did. And I didn't feel guilty about it. I ate all 4 of the puddings and I felt like I'd won. I felt like she
And
was
then you
trying to
didn't.
manipulate me. And I thought, nope, it's not
Right.
going to work. Yeah. Sorry, Mark.
Well, no, I just want you to address, because you addressed something here that I think is important. They know where the line is, except for sometimes when we're emotional ourselves, we keep moving the line. And if you
Mm,
keep moving the line, they're never going to know where the line is. Then they're going to just keep pressing until they find the line. And
yep.
and so talk to that a little bit.
Oh, I call that the action point. We all have an action
Right.
point. We
Right.
use words, 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 and then action. And our
Right.
kids respond to the action point. So I like to encourage, I teach an instruction routine where we give one instruction and then one reminder. I think that's kind. And the reminder isn't a threat. It's not, you better
Yeah.
listen to me or else
Right.
you're not going to your friend's house. It's
Because
not a
they'll
threat.
match wills with you. They'll
Oh, of
match wills
course.
with you, won't they? Because they're
To me.
strong-willed.
Oh, if you push on somebody, it's interesting. So if this was a live, if we were hanging out with a group, I would get a volunteer and I would push. If I pushed on someone's chest, some people will back up and some people will instinctively push forward. Oh, yeah.
Totally.
You know
Totally.
who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
So they can't feel
So
pushed on.
yeah, that's just so interesting, because I think that in some ways they aren't the strong-willed kids trying to move the line. So they're trying to get, they always want to know where the line is, and so they're trying to push it out, out,
Yeah.
out. That's why I always say let natural consequences take hold. That cause
Well,
and
I
effect
like
you talk
to.
about.
Yes, yes. We just need to follow through with their choice. So I like to give
Right.
one instruction, one reminder. Hey, Johnny, I gave you an instruction to go get your backpack. Just a
Right.
reminder. And after that, we have the action point. So we follow
Right.
through. And to have a conversation with your kids
And what should
during
the
a good
action
time.
point what should the action
Mm,
point be?
my favorite action point is a job jar. My
Oh.
favorite. I find
Oh.
it the most effective. I find that it works in all of the ways. So you just get a couple of jobs, appropriate, of course, things that you know your kids
Yeah.
know how to do, but literally a wet washcloth. You can wipe down cupboard doors, you can wipe table legs. I mean, when's the last time anyone dusted a baseboard?
Right.
Never.
Yeah.
Never, right? You can wipe down anything. You can wipe out sinks in a bathroom. So just something. It can take less than 10 minutes to do, but just the process of, oh, you know what, you chose not to follow our family rule, so now you need to go to the job jar. If you can have a conversation with your kids ahead of time at a good time of day and say,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, I've noticed that we've been fighting and there's been yelling and there's been pushing back, and then people are grounded, and this just isn't fun. Like, I want to have more fun. Do you want to have more fun? And the kids are, yes, of course they want to have more fun. And you can
Yeah.
say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to implement a family rule that when mom or dad given an instruction, we're going to give one reminder. And then after that, if you choose not to obey, that means you're choosing the job jar. And
Right.
it's up to you. You can say, so here's some of the jobs. Here's what they are. They might be putting 10 things away. They might be putting 15 toys away, whatever that
Right.
is. Here's the jobs in the job jar. You don't have to do any of them if you follow our family rule.
Right.
So it's up to you. And
Right.
strong-willed kids, they do really well with this because it actually takes you out of
The
the
equation.
equation. It's not them
Yeah.
versus mom or them versus dad. It's
Yeah.
oh, you didn't follow our family rule. You chose the job jar. This is your choice.
Yeah. I use
So
the word
they have to
agreement
go and
rather
get it.
than rule. I
Pardon
like the
me?
family. I use the word agreement rather than rule
Yes.
because the
Yes.
families agreed to this, right? So,
Yeah.
but I love that because you're empowering the children to make choices then. So you're teaching your strong-willed child how to make a good choice because a strong-willed person will make lots of choices, but some of them are going to be bad just because they're strong-willed. But if you can
Yeah.
teach them the natural consequence, the cause and effect that you speak of, and then have an outcome like an
Yeah.
action point, I think that's just so powerful. I think, again, you're right. It takes the battle away from you. I think Max Lucado said conflict is inevitable, but combat's optional. And so
Right.
it in the same way, that's what you're saying there.
Yeah,
What's
kids
number
will
three?
look to that. Oh, number 3. Number 3 is
Yeah,
parents need tools, strategies, support, and encouragement. Strong-willed
right,
kids, we love them, and they are going to grow up and do amazing things. My strong-willed kid is a world changer. He is doing so many hard things.
yeah,
I mean, we are cheering him on. We are championing him. He's doing amazing.
right,
Sometimes the kids that can be difficult to raise when they're younger can be just amazing. But while they're young and it's hard, I think sometimes it feels very isolating. And I look back and I remember feeling like, is this normal? I remember one time leaving my house in the
mhm,
evening just because I had to get out of the house for a bit because I felt so beaten down
yeah,
through the day that I remember sitting in my car and crying, and I ran a few errands, and I'm like
wow,
fighting off tears the whole time. And
yeah,
I just
yeah,
felt so isolated and alone. And I felt, not only did I feel like I was failing my kids, I felt like I was a bad mother, but I also felt really stupid because I
hmm.
thought, I am letting a 10-year-old put
Ruined my
me in this
life.
position that I feel like I'm worthless. And
Yeah,
how is it these little people can do this to me? Like, and it was very isolating. I was embarrassed. I was
yeah,
insecure. And I I didn't have the support system because I
right,
think a lot of my peers were feeling similarly. So we were all
right,
isolated ourselves and we didn't have it in place. And I think strong-willed parents in particular, you need that support system. You need a coach. You need someone like Mark
right,
or myself that can hear you. You can be
yeah,
a safe place where you don't want to trash your kids. I get it, but you do want a place to just process what's going
yeah,
on. You need someone to tell you, is this normal? Is this typical kid behavior? Or is this beyond that? And
right,
what should I do here for this situation? You need
right,
someone to come alongside you and say, you got this. You're going to do
hmm,
it. You're going to, no matter how hard today was, you're going to get up tomorrow and you're going to
yeah,
do the very best that you can for your kids because you love them.
right. Yeah, they're so good, and even a support group of some sort, like
Mhm.
for moms and dads. There's lots of mummy groups, but dads
For
aren't so
dads.
open. And but I
Yep.
think dads need to also. There's many times I felt like a failure as a father. I didn't
Yes.
want to. I so didn't want to become my dad that I became him. And so,
Oh,
in my healing journey, I discovered I needed to have people in my life to open up to, and have a few people that I could trust and do that
yeah.
with. And so it is really important. I just want to encourage you parents to take heed to what Jen just said. Like this is a very practical tip. Get a few people in your life that you can just vent to, and then break it down, go backwards and break
Yeah.
down what's really happening and why it's impacting you the way it's impacting you. Take
And
that
if I could
curiosity position on. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, and if I could encourage parents, it's not enough, in my opinion, it's not enough to just have that good friend you go for coffee with and kind of complain about how hard your
Yeah.
life is.
Yeah.
You need a person that can hear your heart, but can offer you wisdom,
Right.
right? And will point towards reconciliation. Because if I go out and I'm talking about my marriage or my kids and how hard it is, and they're like, yeah, that's hard, they shouldn't do that, and that's not kind of
Right.
them, and they, right, then I leave there feeling even more angry. I feel now angry
Right.
but justified in my anger. But instead you need to find a group that's going to offer you tools, so it's a
Yeah.
safe place, but you also
Right.
are leaving there encouraged, and you have some tools. So I think coaching is wonderful for that. I think it's a
Right.
safe place for both.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really a good point. That's a really good point because, and also a coach is not in your circle, so you don't have to worry about what they know.
Right.
It's always
Yep.
confidential. That's one of our highest values in coaching is confidentiality. So it's going to be safe there, and yeah, you're going to get pushed back on if you're being irrational. if you're if
Yeah.
you're beating yourself up for no reason, you're going to get told that, right? So
Yep.
I think that's really good. A coach is an excellent place to land, and to have people in your life like that. And for those that are solo parents, that especially, but
Oh,
even
even more.
those yeah, even more so, right? But those that are there's lots of times I have a client who's a solo parent, and they'll message me sometimes and just say, "Hey, I'm dealing with this right now. Uh, what? Do you have any advice? Do you have any thoughts?" And they said it's just so helpful to have somebody they can do that with
Yes.
because they don't have a partner to do
Yep,
that
that's
with.
the number one. That's the number one issue, the struggle that solo parents have is they don't have that person to bounce off. This is what
Right.
happened today. This is what they did today. This is what, and then the number
Right.
two, of course, is they don't have physically that person to
Yeah.
tag out
Yeah.
when
That's
they need it.
it's I believe solo parents are the heroes of our society. I
Oh,
mean,
yep.
my goodness,
They
I
need
don't know
it.
how they do it.
They
I
need
don't
the
know how
help.
they do it. Can you speak to for a minute though, if you have a partner,
Yeah.
what are some things that helped you and your husband deal with the strong-willed child? Because it seems to me which would be really important to be on the same page, because
Mm.
otherwise the kid will boy kids know how to get in between and
Oh, yeah.
and ask mom for a cookie, she says no, so I'll go ask dad, type of stuff. But like when it's a
Yep.
strong-willed child, what are some things that where you did support each other, what are some things parents can do to support each other uh, to help?
Yeah. Well, I always like to start with just as you said, are we on the same page in parenting? Do we
Right.
fundamentally agree in how we're parenting, how we're raising the kids? And sometimes there's some big wide gaps there in what both parent
Yeah.
feels is the right way to go. So my goal
Oh yeah.
first of all is to help, let's say there's a dad that feels like, "Hey, you know what? I shouldn't have to praise a kid every time he makes his bed. Like that's not rocket science. You should do that because
Yeah.
that's what you do in a family. I shouldn't have to say
that's
thank you, right?"
that's what
And
I
so,
had to
and
do.
sometimes we have a mom that might be on the opposite or vice versa, right? So the
Right.
idea is getting parents to take a step closer together to see,
Right.
hey, you guys are a team. And this is was mind-blowing for my husband Sean and I. We're a team. So it really doesn't matter if I agree with his
Right.
perspective or not. That's his perspective, and he is a vital, valid part of this team. And
Right.
that's really important to him. And this is what's really important to me. So how can we take a step to meet in the middle? Lots of
Right.
times, one
Right.
parent really feels like children should just obey, first time obedience.
Right.
Yes, I also would really like first time obedience. However, not at the expense of the relationship. And I don't want to use
Right.
harshness to
Right.
get there. So a lot of times it's saying, okay, this is the goal. The goal is having obedient children. But how can we get there in a way that feels better for everyone, for the
Right.
team?
Yeah.
I do a training where we talk about three things. We talk about a rock, and that represents the drill sergeant parenting style. It's
Yeah.
sharp, it's harsh, it's very firm, rigid. It is not, it is not forgiving. We talk about a
Right.
marshmallow, sweet, fluffy, kind, and fun. That would be represent permissive parenting. And then
Yeah.
we talk about a tennis ball. That's the middle. That's actually the best of both. And kids that grow up in a tennis ball, there's a little bit of firmness to it, but there's also some fun, right? It's
Yeah.
it's learning how and when to apply
Yeah.
the
That's so
tennis
good.
ball approach. It's
Yeah.
been really helpful for parents to get on the same page. So I think that's really important. And then the second one I would say is just commit to dealing with and working on anger, because
Yeah.
that is our nemesis as
Yeah.
parents, of all parents, not just strong-willed kids, but all
Yeah.
parents. That is our nemesis, is dealing with anger.
Yeah. Yeah. Because anger, well, first of all, nobody listens to angry voice anyway. But
Right.
secondly, anger can do great damage to a child
Yeah.
because the
Yep.
tone of voice. I think Dobson did a study. Dr. Dobson, who's a child psychologist, did a study, and it said it takes 7 positive words to negate 1 negative in a child's life. And when I heard that
Ouch.
stat, I thought, oh my goodness, I ruined my kids.
Yeah.
But but then I spent a lot of time giving them positive words too, and so that you're so right. And I think with this partnership concept, you're right. We got to negotiate, come in the middle, but we have to honor one another. And if we can honor
Yeah.
each other in front of the kids, then the kids know they can't drive a wedge. And I
Yeah.
found when my wife and I got on the same page that way, even though her style was very different and my style was very different, we were able to find that tennis ball. What happened is our relationship got better because we
Yes.
weren't fighting over the kids as much. See,
Yeah.
kids think it's the kids often think divorce is their fault because a lot of the fighting that happens in the family is over the kids. And
Right.
that's not the message that we need to send. And it's not true. It
No.
wasn't the kid's fault. It was never the kid's fault. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting. So working on your relationship with your partner is actually a gift to the children.
Oh,
And and so
100%.
that's yeah. And all the more if you have a strong-willed child, all the more you need to be
Doubly
on the
so.
same page, doubly so.
Yes, yes. And let's just have the vision for the future is we want our kids to grow up seeing a mom and dad that were a team together. We didn't want to see
Right.
that it was mom and the kids here on an island and dad
Yeah.
just worked and brought a paycheck. We don't want to
Right.
see that dad, made all the decisions and never asked for input and
Yeah.
mom had no voice. None of these are healthy. We want our kids to
Right.
grow up and see, we have to model this healthy relationship, because I
Yeah.
don't want my kids to be either in the position of lording over other people or in the position where they don't feel like they have a voice.
Yeah.
So we have to be
Yeah.
willing to go first. Is it hard?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Worth it.
Yes. I always tell parents, be parents when they're little and they'll be your friend when they're older.
Yep.
But if you are their friends when they're little, you won't have them as friends when they're older. And I'm
Yeah.
very grateful for our kids. They're all married now and have children of their own. And it's so fun to watch their marriages. I've got one kid that's been married 13 years, the other just coming up on 15 years, and the other one is 3 years. But I watch them interact with each other, and I watch them take on some of these, especially my daughter and son-in-law who have the 2 grandchildren. I watch how they're raising them, and they are doing so much better job than I did. But I think I hear them say things that are things we taught them that they might have, it felt like they rejected in the moment, but they've actually realized they did adopt it and they did take it on.
Right.
And so that's another thing, a little tip I have is just remember, it's never instant gratification. There's always delayed. A seed takes time to grow, and it takes nurturing to
Mhm.
grow. So don't give up because you're not seeing all the victories that you think you should have. You are sowing
Yeah.
seeds into your children's heart, and
Yep.
and so keep sowing good seeds in their heart, and you will see the outcomes
Yeah, don't
later.
quit.
And I can speak from this side of it that that
Yeah.
is true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't quit.
every little thing that you do, every time you are exhausted and you want to pretend you didn't see that thing that just
Yeah.
happened, every time you get up and you deal with it, that is worth it. It counts. It's valid. Every
Yeah.
time you're so tired, but you commit to that bedtime routine. Every time you
Yeah.
follow through with firmness but not harshness. That's a
Yeah.
some days the win is, did I get through the day without yelling?
Yeah.
That could be a win. Or maybe did I get through the day without yelling more than 5 times? Like
Yeah.
maybe that's where we start.
Start where you are and
Yeah.
then work. Yeah. Well, that's so good, Jen. That's so good. So, as we kind of we're coming to the end of our time here. Is there any kind of last piece that comes to mind that you'd like to leave deposit into our listeners? This has been such a great conversation, and your advice and your coaching is just so practical,
Mm.
but it's also inspirational because I think that parents, are going to be inspired by this. But hey, it's okay that you've had to struggle. It's okay. Like, you're not
Yes.
alone and whatnot. And so you've just really given us some real thought-provoking things. I
Mm.
encourage you to share this out, everybody, listeners. Just share this with people, especially people that have strong-willed children,
Yeah.
because it's so encouraging that they're. Let me just say it this way: their strong will is not your fault, but
No.
you have the
No.
privilege and honor of being able to shape it into something beautiful.
Mhm. 100%. There is some grit there, and we
Yeah,
can work with that, and we can work with their strengths. And these kids are going to be amazing. They're world changers. They will do the hard thing, they will
yeah,
overcome and persevere. But raising them is hard. So you need to make sure you have the tools, you have strategies, and you have support.
right, right. Oh, that's so good. All right. So listen, here's familiesmattermost.com. I'll have
Yes.
the link in the show notes as well. And you can find, I really highly recommend Jen, uh, reach out to her. And I know she's open to that.
Mhm.
And that, if you engage with her, that she can really help your family. It's
Yes.
not just the strong-willed children. She's a family expert. And so we want to make sure. And I love that your family expertise not from book smart, but it's from like messing it all up and figuring out how to fix it.
It's
That's
from the
kind of my
trenches.
it's from the trenches. That's my story too. And so I just appreciate that about you. I appreciate your humility in this. And thanks so much, Jen, for sharing everything that you've shared today with our audience.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. I look forward to us doing more of this together.
Yeah.
By the way, Jen also has a podcast. If you go to the website, I'm sure there'll be a link there to find the podcast,
Yep.
Families Matter Most podcast, which I've been a guest on, and now she's been a guest on mine. And so I really encourage you to go and listen to her podcast. There's all kinds of great content there, and so track her down that way. And then you can also is there a subscription that people could sign up to as well?
Yes, well, there
Subscribe to
is
your
a
newsletter?
yes, subscribe to the newsletter for
Yeah,
sure. I do private coaching. I have some online courses that are on demand. You can download them.
perfect.
And then also I have just brand new due to request, we are
Yeah,
doing a small group coaching program. So if you're thinking,
awesome.
I'd love this. Yes, yes, Jen, I need tools and support and strategies. Small group coaching will be perfect. It's a safe place. Parents
That's
will
awesome.
absolutely understand where you're coming from, and you'll get
Yeah,
some strategies and tools.
awesome. So familiesmattermost.com, head
Yes.
there and you'll find out everything going on and jump into the Family Matters Most ecosystem, and then you'll get all the help you need. Thanks, Jen. Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.
We'll see you next episode. Thanks for listening.